Welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast, where you can share your story judgment-free. We are here to guide you down the road to redemption and restoration. Remember, healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. Now, here are your hosts, Anthony and Melissa.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. I am your host, Anthony.
Hello, I'm your co-host, Melissa. Welcome back.
Yeah,
Thanks
welcome
for joining
back.
us again.
Thanks.
Episode 20?
Episode 20, that's right. Thanks for checking us out. If you've stuck it out with us for 20 episodes, we so appreciate it. When you launch a podcast, even though we've done it before, it's a labor of love for sure, but sometimes we look back and go, it's been 20 episodes. It doesn't seem like it. Sometimes, and other times it's like, isn't season one almost over? And we will be taking a break in between. And we will be giving you a little bit of bonus content from a previous podcast of ours to kind of get you through on our 2-week break before we get into season 2. So we have 24 episodes in season 1. We'll take a couple of week break and then we'll get to it. Okay, now, before we get to tonight's episode, we just want to remind you, please check out our other podcast entitled The Struggle Series. That podcast, as we always say, is completely different than this one. It is where you can hear all of my stories. I am a Christian author. I write horror novels. Some of you Christians don't believe a Christian should be able to do that, but I do it. There is a gospel message in those books, as well as kind of a thriller, detective, not guessing the ending right, even though you think you have it the whole time, type of a storytelling. There are all of the books in the Struggle series on there, which is 4 sagas. And then we have recently started our newest novel, which is a completely different set of characters. And we're pretty much about halfway through with that one. So you can check that out every other Thursday in the same places that you hear this podcast. So listen to this message real quick and we'll get right back to you. Before we get to tonight's episode, let's hit you with a quick disclaimer. Although I practiced as a licensed therapist and an ordained minister, this podcast is not a substitute for clinical advice. This is not therapy. This podcast is for prayer and emotional support only. If you feel like you're going to harm yourself or others, please call 911 or reach out by text or phone to 988. This podcast is anonymous for a reason. We're not here to judge you or incriminate you. Please keep the names of anybody you've harmed out of your story. Oh, and if you're not remorseful, you're not ready for this podcast. Just reach out to us at a different time when you're ready to make some changes. Now, let's get ready for this episode of the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. So Melissa, tonight we're going to tackle one of the tough ones, one of the difficult subjects that people struggle with. Now, when I say people struggle with, I'm talking judgmental people. And even those that wouldn't consider them judgmental, let's be honest, there's always a couple of topics that even the most empathetic of people struggle to show empathy. And so tonight we're going to tackle one of those. We're really going to test what we do here and maybe test some of our audience as well. Now, when we set out to do this podcast, Melissa and I sat down and had some conversations, and I said, what's going to happen when somebody calls in with a domestic violence call? Well, guess what? We have a correspondence from somebody who is a professed domestic violence perpetrator who is full of remorse, full of shame, has since gone on and kind of made a lot of changes. However, carries that stigma. And, you know, I think a lot of times we don't realize, but like you could be going along living your life really well, and then you're going to switch jobs, and then you have to apply for another job. And now somebody's pulling your background. And so
Oh,
some of
yeah.
the calls we hear are more internal struggles.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight's call is actually somebody who kind of carries a moniker with them
Right.
for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what we're going to ask you to do as listeners is just kind of buckle up and just kind of hear this guy out. Some of you, as they always say in the broadcasting world, trigger warning. If this is a subject that is just a little too close to home for you,
Mm-hmm.
you haven't done a lot of healing, or it's just something that has triggered you for a long time,
Right. Yeah.
I guess we give you permission to maybe skip this episode.
Mm-hmm.
We are not hypocrites here. We can't say there's grace for unlovable people, but then say, yeah, but not that group of people or that group of
Mm-hmm.
people. And so all of you know there's a couple of few groups of people that everybody wants to shy away from.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're going to try not to do that.
Okay.
Also, keep in mind there are correspondence that we get that we won't put on the air, whether that be a letter or a request for an interview or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
because we just don't feel that the person is ready and
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of
Mm-hmm.
remorse in there. And we
Right.
also want to respect our audience or anybody listening who has been kind of a victim of that type of
Mm-hmm.
behavior, whatever that is. And then we're putting somebody on who kind of still thinks it's not a big deal, or they feel a little bit of shame, but more or less because they got caught, not necessarily because of what they did. So
Mm-hmm.
we have weeded some of those out. We will continue to do so. So if you're somebody who's on the fence about this topic,
Mm-hmm.
again, if it's just something that's real heavy on your heart, tune out. Come back next
Yeah.
week and maybe we'll have another crazy story for you to listen to, because some of you
Oh.
just listen for the shock value, and
Mm-hmm.
that's okay. But if you're somebody who's kind of worked on yourself a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
you might find that this person is definitely working on themselves and is full of remorse, not blaming, or what they call victim blaming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's also a big part of somebody healing. When somebody's a victim of this type of abuse, the last thing they want to do is have victim blaming going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that could be done by law enforcement, by family members, by friends. Nobody deserves to be wounded
Mm-hmm.
physically, emotionally, that type of thing in a
Right.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's take a breath, and we're going to get to a letter from somebody who's anonymous. The
Mm-hmm.
letter's pretty choppy. It's not real fluid, and I'm not picking on you. We don't know who wrote this, so if you're
Oh, got
listening,
nervous.
I'm not picking on you, but it's pretty choppy in the sense that it was just maybe just jotted down real kind of quickly, maybe with some
Once
reluctance.
it's in,
And so
it's in.
it's not gonna be as fluid as some of the other letters, and that's okay. I
Mm-hmm.
just think what we need to do is just get the content
Mm-hmm.
right.
Okay.
So we're gonna get to a letter from Anonymous,
Mm-hmm.
and it says, Anthony and Melissa, thanks for taking the time to read this letter. Not sure I was gonna send it, but here it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can use this on your podcast, but trust me, I will not be giving you any of my personal information. The reason for that is I fall into a category of somebody who everybody hates. You say there's grace for unlovable people, but I'm the unlovablest of the unlovable. And I'm going to kind of pause there a little bit.
Aw.
I don't know if unlovablest is a word, but Anonymous, I love that
Mm-hmm.
you kind of, put that in there,
Mm-hmm.
because I think we get what you're saying. Now let's get a little deeper here.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm talking about is I have been arrested and have paid the price for a domestic violence against a previous girlfriend. We only dated 8 months, but it was rocky and I slipped. Let me tell you what I mean by slipped. I grew up with a lot of abuse in my house. I hated it. My stepfather beat up my mother and all of us kids. He was awful. I said to myself way back then, I will never do this to another person. I will always be a good man. So can you understand what I mean by slipped? Yes, we can, Anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
Um, slip, I think maybe in the context of what I was originally thinking was that you had done it before and now you did it again. But it sounds like when you mean by slipped is you slipped on a pact
Mm-hmm.
that you had made with
Yeah,
yourself once
that's what I
upon a
was
time.
thinking, that he would never do that to anyone.
Yeah. So continue again, letters kind of choppy, just kind of skipping down to the next section,
Mm-hmm.
like paragraph-ish type thing. It says, my girlfriend, very volatile. I had never dated anybody like that. The relationship was way too intense. I should have left, but I didn't. Please don't hear me say that it was her fault. She was volatile, but she never put a hand on me. It was just yelling and screaming. I'm a grown up. I should have left. But instead, I stayed and tried to win all of the arguments. Eventually, I lost not only the argument, but my freedoms. Let me explain. When you're arrested for domestic violence, your life turns upside down. No more freedoms. No more going to job interviews without having to explain. No more getting jobs that you're qualified for because of your background.
Mm-hmm.
I spent 60 days in a jail. I wish I could show you a picture of me, but I won't. I don't belong in a jail. I'm a nerdy professional type guy. Let me just say that it was 60 days of hell for me. I got bullied and picked on every day. When I was released, I was made to do almost a year's worth of domestic violence classes. I was able to work on myself in those classes. Here's what I would tell people who have never been through this before. Just because you witness this behavior and swear you'll never do it doesn't mean you'll never do it.
Mm-hmm.
I hated what my stepfather did, so now I hate myself even worse. I don't ever want to be like him. What I uncovered was I had a lot of emotions that I had never worked through. That is the problem. I thought I was fine, but when somebody triggered those emotions, I didn't have the skills to handle it, and I acted exactly like I swore I wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Let me say this, I am 100% responsible. It is nobody's fault but my own. I understand that. I was able to complete all of my requirements and got off of court ordered supervision.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not over. It'll never be over. My mother, who endured all of this abuse and made excuses for my stepfather, no longer talks to me because of what I did. That sounds crazy because if anybody should have understood, it's her. But I guess I see what she's saying. She wanted me to be better, and I wasn't. I have a big group of friends, a lot of them female. Most of them don't talk to me anymore. Even some of the guys don't want anything to do with me. So there I am, unlovable in the universe, basically almost unhireable. I know what I did was wrong, but is there an end to this? Or is this something that will always creep up when I'm not looking? I'd love to hear what you have to say, Anonymous.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's
So so here's kind of where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll cut to you here in a minute. I am somebody who worked in the court ordered therapy system for so long that I don't know, what do you want? Numb? Maybe that's the word I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for. I've heard the craziest of crazy stories. I
Mm-hmm.
have counseled or treated in therapy people with severe criminality, severe psychopathology. So a story like this is very run of the mill to me.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the counseling agencies that I was a part of, couple that I owned, because I was a co-owner of one big facility, and then I left and started my own thing. We both of those facilities administered domestic violence therapy. So, I gained certifications. I counseled many men and women through domestic violence. So I'm hearing this story and I'm saying that's
Oh.
pretty light.
Mhm.
He didn't give the details, and that's why I said it's pretty vague and choppy. If you kind of,
Yeah, like 60 days. Like what?
yeah. What I can say though is 60 days is probably because there was some sort of physical violence that is maybe not normal, because this guy doesn't sound like he has a criminal background. The
Mhm.
way he's talking about having a criminal background, it's
Mhm.
bothering him.
Mhm.
It's not like he's saying, I had a criminal background, but this is worse than my other stuff.
Mhm.
He's saying it as if this is the only time he's ever been in trouble. So because a lot of domestic violence offenders will just get like a probationary status,
Mhm.
and if they don't screw up, then the case can go away. If not, then they'll put them in jail for a long time. As long as they complete their treatment and their requirements,
Oh.
they do okay. And most of them, what they would call first time offenders,
Mhm.
they do not have 60 days in jail. They get their jail time deferred. They might do like time served, like which was overnight or something like that.
Mhm.
So he's giving the impression that it was a physical assault,
Mhm.
but we don't know how bad. I also know that it couldn't have been severe, because then he would have done
Mhm.
more therapy as
Right.
well as more jail
Time.
time.
Mhm.
So it's, when I say it's kind of run of the mill for me, it's kind of run of the mill.
Mhm.
I say all that to say I don't know how the audience feels. If you're somebody who has never been involved in this, you have that guttural reaction that a lot of people do, right? There's murderers, domestic violence offenders, sex offenders.
Mhm.
Those three are the ones where everybody goes, well, I'm willing to forgive everybody,
But
but not those three groups, right?
mhm.
So if a murderer moves next door to you, and you knew about it, you'd be freaked out. If a domestic violence couple, that has all kinds of domestic violence fights that the
Oh
neighborhood
gosh,
hears,
yeah.
you don't want that around you. And then of course, the sex offender thing, you're on a registry, we all know that one. But I think where I've come from, Melissa, like sometimes those aren't the worst offenders. And please don't take that out of context.
Yeah.
Sometimes their case isn't what you think it is. And society does a good job at putting all murderers in one category, or
Mhm.
all domestic violence offenders in one category, or all sex offenders in one category. And whether this bothers you or not, that's just not true.
Mhm.
There's a big difference between a guy who is having a fight with his girlfriend and it gets heated and he slaps her, than a
Mhm.
guy that has a severe, like violent reaction and breaks all the furniture in the house and punches her, drags her down the stairs. Those are different crimes,
Mhm.
all bad,
Oh yeah.
none of it good,
Mhm.
but those are different, especially if the guy that was dragging her down the stairs also has 5 or 6 previous assault charges
Relationships.
and
Mhm.
2 other domestic violence charges. You
Mhm.
can't put those people in the same category, but on a background check, right? It just
Oh, I didn't
says
know it showed up, I guess.
domestic violence. Yeah.
Mhm.
And like in Colorado, for example, where we're from, any crime that is done in the proximity of a spouse or a relationship or a family member can be considered domestic violence. So that's not the name of the crime. So domestic violence assault is like if you're yelling and screaming and threatening, that type of thing, that's assault. Battery domestic violence is when there's
Mhm.
physicality.
Mhm.
Harassment could be like if you're not letting her go, kind of calling her 400 times a day, or calling
Mm.
him,
Yeah.
uh, threatening, that type of thing. That could be threats or harassment, domestic violence.
Mhm.
Then you have like crazy charges like phone tampering, domestic violence. So if you're in a fight with somebody and they're trying to make a 911 call and you rip the phone out of their hand or rip the phone
Oh,
out of the
yeah.
wall,
Mhm.
like they used to in the old days, because I've been
Mhm.
doing this long enough when there was landlines. You can actually be charged sometimes with a felony for wire tampering, because you um
took away their
You took away their
freedom
means to
to
make a
get help.
911
Yeah.
call. And so stalking domestic violence, you see,
Mm-hmm.
so it's the domestic violence is the moniker that goes with the crime that was committed.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably very similar in most of the other states, but so we'll just take Colorado, for example. I don't know where this person's from because there's literally no identifying information. It's one of those emails that has like a bunch of letters and numbers. So
Mm-hmm.
it was made for the purpose of sending this email.
Right. Yeah.
So I say
Okay.
all that to say, if you are somebody who has been involved in this, I just want you to understand that I may speak a little callously or maybe sound almost like I'm minimizing this.
Mm-hmm.
Just understand that I've seen the worst of the worst. This is not it. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
So just give me a little bit of grace.
Mm-hmm. Like we're giving anonymous
Yeah.
today.
Yeah. So all that to kind of clarify, Melissa. Now, what are your thoughts?
Well, I feel the same way that you feel. I think like I never really thought about it being on your record as far as applying for a job, but I guess certain jobs they do a thorough background check, like in HR. Well, actually, you're right because anything that shows up could be anything that they could use to not hire you.
Yeah, I was going to say you
Now
worked
thinking
in
about
HR.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I never ran the background check. That was kind of like a different department.
Yeah.
So we would just say no, they didn't pass the background check. I never really, asked
Yeah.
why. But I mean, thank goodness that he's getting treatment and maybe hopefully he has apologized to well, no, maybe he doesn't need to
Yeah.
reach
So,
out to her.
sometimes they
Sometimes you
won't
can't
allow you to.
exactly.
Uh, if you want to continue the relationship, you'd have to.
If they broke up right after the
Yeah.
fight, then
Yeah.
it would have been well, I'm glad that he's getting help. I mean, unfortunately things like that happen. I mean, he probably just got triggered from his childhood and, sometimes unfortunately you have no control of repeating the pattern. But I'm
Mhm.
glad that he noticed it. Hopefully this is his first offense and last one.
Mhm.
It sounds like he's working on himself that it doesn't happen again. But I think you're right about the different categories like a murderer versus somebody that intentionally went out and killed someone versus if you're in the car accident and it was an accidental,
Yeah.
death, just someone still lost their life. But if you were uh, arrested or convicted of, let's say, like a DUI, if someone's in a car accident,
Mhm.
that's still
It's manslaughter,
is man.
vehicular manslaughter.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess it's still the same.
Well,
But
and a lot of people don't understand the terminology, right?
right.
So there's a couple things. So like a first degree murder is
Mm-hmm.
premeditated. You had a time to cool off. You didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You planned it. You thought it out. Second degree murder is you wanted to kill the person,
Mm-hmm.
but it was kind of a spur of the moment or an emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
Manslaughter is like you never set out to happen, but it happened. A gun accidentally went off. You
Mm-hmm.
got in a fight and you punch the person and they hit their head on the curb,
Yeah.
But here's what a lot of people don't realize is that some people will plead down a case from the original charge to
Lesser
the
or
lesser charge. So somebody
mm-hmm.
could have technically had a second degree murder
Mm-hmm.
that they could have been convicted on, but they took a plea bargain to manslaughter. They did 25 years, got out in 14 with good
Mm-hmm.
time or, good behavior. And then you go on your merry way and somebody pulls a background check. And
Right. Yeah.
unless they're requesting like the full, what's called a minimus, which is like the full breakdown of what happened in the trial and the case and
Oh.
what the charges were and stuff, or even the full what they call a discovery, which
Mm-hmm.
is all of the evidence that they could have brought forth. Somebody might be giving a second degree murderer a break because they thought it was just a manslaughter. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people hiring or even people just running background checks on their neighbors like some nosy people do,
Oh, yeah.
um, they may not know the whole story.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm not encouraging you to go do this type of evidence.
Right. Yeah.
There's just certain ways that people can find out.
Mm-hmm.
And so domestic violence is very much the same. If somebody was having an argument and they threw the remote control and it broke the window and the cops got called, that's still bad. That's still
Mm-hmm.
domestic violence. But technically, there was no battery that occurred.
Yeah.
There was no physical violence. But then somebody is reading that you have a domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
destruction of property, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Um,
guess when women are dating, they check to see
yeah, people
if
do
there's
that a lot
any,
now.
and they just see it and go, sometimes it's best to run away. And
Well,
maybe sometimes it's to maybe listen to give the person a chance
yeah,
to tell their side of the story.
I would
People
never,
can change.
yeah,
I mean,
I would never encourage somebody not to run one of those.
mm-hmm.
But, if you really like the person, maybe ask them some questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, here's where you get hypocritical, right? Because, I have a 20-year-old daughter in college. If she came and said, "Hey, I really like this guy. I ran this background check on him. He has a domestic violence." The guy who's running this podcast might disappear and the dad may come in. So we're kind of joking with this, but what we're kind of saying is it's always good to know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And give people second chances.
Mm-hmm.
So if my daughter, hypothetically, of course, were to run a background check and then do some research and find out that he physically,
Punch someone
severely
in the
beat
face.
somebody,
Yeah.
then yes,
It's
there might
different.
be, run from this. But on the same token, that person would still be welcome to call this podcast,
Mm-hmm.
if you kind of track what we're saying, listeners,
Mm-hmm.
because we're not telling the victim of this person who wrote this letter's crime that they're not important
Mm-hmm.
and that it isn't their best decision to leave. We're not saying any of that.
Mm-hmm.
We're saying this man has done this behavior.
Mm-hmm.
He is showing remorse, and there is grace for him
Mm-hmm.
through Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
This
Yeah.
is one where I really thought about how I wanted to say this. Okay. What I am saying is, to a lot of our people that write in and to a lot of our listeners, there will be times when you commit some sort of stupid ass behavior, right? Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's a crime or whatever, where places to find grace become very minimal,
Mm-hmm.
especially right after you commit a crime. Some people are put in the newspaper
Mm-hmm.
and their neighbors and their friends and family are all made aware. Where are you going to find grace?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's available. Jesus
Mm-hmm.
died for all of these sins
Mm-hmm.
2000 years ago. um he even this one. And I have Christians that'll say, well, they must not be a Christian and he didn't die for this sin, they have to accept Jesus. And us, yeah, they have to accept that Jesus died for their sins.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
don't
Yeah.
get it twisted, as
Mm-hmm.
young people say. Don't get it twisted that your sins are small and other people's are big,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is big. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a good thing. And I like what you said, and this is kind of where I want to go next. You said that hopefully it's his last.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I would encourage you to do, Anonymous, is make sure that it's your last.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it sounds like you've done therapy.
Yeah.
So they have what's called, in most therapy settings, they have what's called a recidivism prevention plan. So let's talk about recidivism.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the easiest way to define it would be returning to the behaviors that got you in trouble in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So recidivism prevention is, I'm not going to get any more domestic violence charges,
Right.
right? Um, that is a hard process for a behavior that you've shown that you're capable of, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't need a recidivism prevention plan to stop eating avocados.
Mm-hmm.
I hate avocados. I hate the consistency. If I was on Fear Factor, I could choke them down. I'd be okay.
Right.
But I'm never going to order them. I'm going to take them off of
Off
every food
everything.
that I order. I love Mexican food, right? But take the guacamole, take the avocados out. So I don't need a recidivism prevention plan to not eat avocados.
Mm-hmm.
But I do need a recidivism prevention plan if I want to stop drinking these Pepsis. And I'm holding one up. We don't do video, but I literally have one here. Melissa and I have joked and talked about that like trust me, I've cut back to like one a day
Mhm.
instead of 4 or 5 a day. I even started buying bottles so I don't have to, because if I open a can, I'm going to drink the whole can. So you can see that I would need and it's kind of a stupid
Right,
analogy,
exactly.
but
But
I would need a recidivism prevention plan,
mhm.
and it would run deep. Melissa has watched me quit and
Mhm.
then watched me pick it back up. The
Mhm.
only reason I quit is to lose weight and to kind of stay a little bit healthy. I don't
Mhm.
want to quit.
Mhm.
Now, now there's, repercussions if you're not drinking a lot of water. It can mess up your kidneys. It's got
Right.
high fructose corn syrup, which isn't good for you, all those things. But
Mhm.
when you're talking about a domestic violence, the stakes are just so much higher,
Yeah.
right? If you're
Mhm.
ever going to have a meaningful relationship,
Mhm.
Anonymous, you're going to have to be a different man.
Mhm.
Now, how does the grace thing tie into it? Well, it ties in perfectly.
Mhm.
Here's what I know about human behavior. Tell me not to do something, and my instinct is probably to do it, or at least to be curious. It's the proverbial do not touch sign on something, and your hand is already up touching it. Don't push this button.
Mhm.
There's like a human nature thing that says, well, what does the button do? You may not push it, but if they wouldn't have put a sign, you wouldn't even have thought to push a button.
Mhm.
But there is that. And so when you're talking about like, you can't just put somebody in jail and force them to do a therapy program and then they're better.
Mhm.
What I think the judicial system is doing, although I'm not always trustworthy of them. I'm
Mhm.
not. I respect them,
Mhm.
but sometimes these judicial programs just become like herding cattle into a gate and
Mhm.
then let them
And let
out
them
on the
out.
other end.
Yeah, let them
They
go.
take your money. They don't care. Some programs are very sincere in what they do, so I'm not
Mhm.
picking on everybody. But regardless, you have to work the work in the program. They say in AA, keep coming back because it works if you work it.
Mhm.
Um, and
That's
and that's
true.
kind of what you need to do in therapy, and I hope that's what you've done. But what I'm saying is when you have grace and you know there's a source of grace, that becomes inspiration to change.
Mhm.
Somebody with literal authority over your head isn't a motivation to change, it's fear. So you're not changing, you're just behaving out of fear.
Mhm.
But when you experience grace, Anonymous, that inspires change.
Mhm.
So this goes to that whole thing about why would I be a Christian when all these Christians have all these doggone rules and Bibles and don't do this and don't do
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Um, the Bible once upon a time, this might sound a little preachy-ish, but just bear with me. The Bible once upon a time was about the law,
Mhm.
because there was these people, they were living, they were screwing up, they started having sex with angels, they had giants, God had to wipe out the earth except for like one family that had a clean bloodline.
Mhm.
As soon as they got off that ark, they started screwing up. One of the sons got excommunicated because he
Mhm.
was a pervert. um, and so then there's this group of people, they started building a tower to
Mhm.
it, which I believe was they were trying to build a portal to get to heaven to bypass God and his laws and stuff. So
Mhm.
then Moses had to go up this hill and get these laws, and they kept writing more laws, and they had to have a law like if your sheep, I mean, if your oxen gores your neighbor's oxen, this is what needs
Oh,
to
yeah.
happen,
Mhm.
because they needed this governance. And so that's what we were supposed to live on. Don't do this, don't do that, do this, don't do that.
Mhm.
Now, all of a sudden, the world got crazy again, and Jesus said,
Yep.
God and Jesus got together and says, "Son, you're going to have to go down and die for him now," because they knew it was going to happen. But now's the time because it's off the rails again.
Mhm.
And so that's where Jesus died. And the law died when Jesus resurrected. The
Mhm.
Bible says that Jesus didn't come to abolish the law and the prophets, but to fulfill them.
Mhm.
So all of the stuff that the prophets spoke of and all of the stuff in the law was fulfilled. So now it's a free gift.
Mhm.
And so what a lot of people will do is say, well, you broke this law, Anonymous, and you have to dot 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 dot.
Mhm. Yeah.
What I'm saying is if you understand that Jesus forgave you when the world doesn't, and
Mhm.
Jesus doesn't remember your sins. Once you've accepted Jesus and
Mhm.
you say, Jesus, remember that time I did that? He was like, what sin?
Mhm.
Like he doesn't count it towards you. Your
Mhm.
faith is counted to you as righteousness, not your behaviors as righteousness.
Mhm.
See, what the religious people will say is you can only be righteous if you do the right thing.
Mhm.
And Jesus came and said, no, I did the right thing. So to get righteousness, to get my righteousness as
Mhm.
Jesus, you just have to accept it as a free gift. And
Mhm.
see, that's where people get crazy. And so the religious people say, well, that can't be true because then everybody will just keep on sinning. And the reality of that is you're still sinning too. Yes,
Mhm.
people keep sinning. But what the reality of it is, when you fully grasp what grace is,
Mhm.
Anonymous,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
where change could be made, because then you're
Mhm.
inspired out of love and grace and truth,
Mhm.
not out of
Fear.
force
Yeah.
or coercion, right?
Mhm.
So a lot of times these programs are, you're going to complete these assignments and you're going to do them exactly as I say, and you're going to word them exactly as I say, and you do them and you graduate the program.
Mhm.
But did you really work on the parts of yourself that you're mad at right now, that
Mhm.
the world's mad at, but more importantly, you're mad at?
Right.
And that's where I think if you understand what grace is. So yes, there's grace for you.
Mhm.
As a matter of fact, if you really want to make the changes, that's where grace comes from,
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
grace comes into the picture, excuse me.
Mhm.
So just imagine somebody looks at a background check and says, can't hire you, buddy. We really liked you in the interview, but we can't do this.
Mhm.
HR said no. Or even worse, somebody says, I can't believe you didn't tell us you were a domestic violence offender. We're not going to hire somebody like
Like you.
you.
Yeah.
And you go home feeling
Aw.
that shame and guilt.
Yeah. Shame and guilt.
That is where you have to understand what grace is, because
Mhm.
grace will redeem you. We say that a lot in some of our taglines and stuff. It's the road to redemption
Mhm.
and restoration. And
Mhm.
this is where I want you to really hear me, Anonymous. There is a redemption time. I don't know if you're there, if you're experiencing it, or if it hasn't come yet, where you are redeemed. There'll come a time when you'll maybe meet somebody and they will say, I don't care what you did in the past. I see how good of a guy you are now.
Mhm.
You'll feel that redemption. Redeemed is like a coupon. Remember, it says
Right,
redeem
Dean.
for a free box of Frosted Flakes, right?
Mhm.
Which means in exchange of.
Mhm.
So you'll be, your past will be exchanged for the new guy.
Mhm. For the future.
And then restoration comes after.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden you're restored. Most background checks only go back 7 years.
Mhm.
So even if they run like LexisNexis, sorry if I know a lot about this, people. I just have a previous ton of experience working in the judicial system,
Mhm.
that type of thing. So most background checks only go back 7 years.
Mhm.
So you just have you been arrested in the last 7 years? No. And most LexisNexis will only report to your employer. So you might have a rough road for the next few years, but if you have a decent job, stick with it or whatever. But more importantly,
Mhm.
when you go to a job interview, you're not afraid of it anymore.
Mhm.
Was there
Yeah.
anything else you want to tell me? Well, you'll notice on section 7 of the application, it asks if I have any previous criminality. I just want you to know that one of my biggest strengths that I wasn't realizing is that um, I had a lot of blind spots in my life, which led to me committing a horrible crime.
Mhm.
But what was great about that is I got a ton of therapy. And so that person who changed that part of himself also changed a lot of things that make me a great employee.
Mhm.
And then you can talk about it without the shame and the guilt driving the car,
Mhm.
right? Okay, so let's just kind of cut to the chase, because we can kind of go on and on about the judicial system or whatever. When you experience grace, Anonymous, find the motivation to change from that love and grace that we talked about in the
Mhm.
truth, but you also find it from like a revitalization. I wear this on my left forearm, the
Mhm.
passage 2 Corinthians 5:17. It says that you're a new man. The
Mhm.
old is gone, the new guy has come.
Mhm.
And that's where change really can occur when you understand, like, I don't want to be the old guy. What I think we do a lot of times is we say we're not going to do something based off of a negative experience that we endured that somebody else did.
Mhm.
But that's not really indicating of somebody that won't perpetuate something like domestic violence,
Mhm.
because the opposite is true. If
Mhm.
you statistically go to, like, most people who commit a domestic violence offense witness domestic violence in their background.
Mhm.
So there's
Yeah.
something about like learned
Behavior.
behavior and reactionary behavior.
Mhm.
So making yourself a promise isn't going to do it. It's about becoming a new man all the way around.
Mhm.
That's what Grace has done for me.
Mhm.
That's what
Yeah.
Grace has done for Melissa. We look at, say, okay, there was parts of me that I liked, parts of me that I didn't.
Mhm.
Now that Jesus has forgiven all of that I've done, like, I want to be a better person all the way around. What we
Mhm.
don't want to do is kind of become a better person like one behavior at a time. So like, I want to be a
Yeah.
better person,
But
period. I just
yeah.
cut somebody off and tried to run them off the road in road rage.
Mhm.
Oh, there's something I need to change. Then you work on road rage for 8 months. Then, okay, now I'm good again.
Mhm.
Then after 8 months, you do another behavior like steal copy paper from work. And then you realize, wait a minute, I'm a thief too. Now let me change that.
Yeah.
That's not, you don't want to like piecemeal your change, right?
Mhm.
The Bible says that you should be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
book of Romans is a beautiful book.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's
Read
pretty.
it, because that's what we're talking about. When you
Mhm.
renew your mind, when you renew all of the thinking, and that's what therapy can do for you,
Mhm.
you become a better person, period. And then you start to look at the behaviors that creep up as, wait a minute, good people don't do that.
Mhm.
Therefore, I'm not going to do that because I'm better than that.
Mhm.
I'm not better than you, but I deserve better than to be somebody who does that.
Mhm.
And that's where change
Yeah.
kind of kicks in. So
Mhm.
when you're thinking about, like, once upon a time, I got in this argument and I assaulted my partner, that's bad. But you got to go back, my friend.
Mhm.
You said it best. We were in this volatile relationship. Why were you in a volatile relationship?
Kind
What
of.
was it in
Yeah.
you that said, this is a good place for me to camp out? Because if there's a volatile relationship,
And 8 months, that's a long time for
yeah.
that type of relationship.
And it probably got volatile quick because it was
Mhm.
probably intense quick.
Mhm.
And so what I'm saying is like, you got to fix what was broken that you would be even in that relationship. It's not
Mhm.
just, I won't hurt people. It's, how do I pick somebody for
Right.
me
Exactly.
that
Yeah.
isn't volatile
Mhm.
and brings out the volatile in me?
Mhm.
You know, I'm going to say this because we're not trying to victim blame, but there's people with mental illnesses that can look like they don't have them until you're knee deep in a relationship, and then they start to show up,
Mhm.
because we don't really take our time and pick our spouses. We go off of like, man, that dude's hot, or man, that girl
Mhm.
is smoking hot, or
Mhm.
oh, they're funny, or they are drive a nice car. We don't say like, let me get to know the soul of this person.
Mhm.
And are they crazy? You know, like you meet a family, right? And their whole family's crazy. Well, you better look at this person and go, did they
Yeah.
carry some of that, or is that why they don't go over there very often? You know,
Right.
like,
Either one.
because it
Mhm.
doesn't mean they're going to be
True.
crazy, but what work did they do to get away from the craziness of their family?
Mhm.
Because they may on paper look like the sane one, but the second there's a conflict, they're going to revert back to what the crazy family did,
Mhm.
unless they've done the work.
Mhm.
So just like
Yeah,
you,
that's a good
I'm
one.
never going to put my hands on a woman. Wait a minute, I just put my hands on a woman. It's because you hadn't done the work yet.
Mhm.
You know, emotions are a crazy thing for men. We've said this before, right? We don't know how to handle them. We don't. And especially when we're trying to, I don't know, Melissa, let's kind of
Just say
put
it.
this both ways. No, let's put it both ways. So like, there's this thing in a human being where when you believe you're right and you believe the other person is wrong,
Mhm.
that frustration that comes out
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to be stereotypical. That's why I said, I don't know, Melissa, you have to correct me here, but men tend to be, you know, what do you call it? Like stereotypically. This
Mm-hmm.
isn't always the case, but men tend to be very analytical. They tend to be like, I'll just grok it and show you the proof, right? And
Mm-hmm.
women stereotypically tend to be more emotionally driven, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore facts are not the whole problem.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're only bringing facts and not addressing the emotions, so like if a couple's having an argument and like a woman said, would you like me to buy you some Pop Tarts? Let's pick something crazy. And you said, sure. I like the strawberry frosted ones the best. Well, she sits there and goes, well, the strawberry frosted, um, I looked at the back and they're not as healthy for you. And I want my man to be healthy. So I'm going to buy these organic ones that aren't made by the Pop Tart company, but they're the same, but similar, but they have better ingredients and they don't have strawberry, but blueberry's almost the same because, I want to buy him what he wants, but I also want him to be happy and
Mm-hmm.
healthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a woman will do. Now, this could switch, roles could switch. I'm just being funny and stereotypical. So when she gets home and throws the Pop Tarts on the counter, he's like, what the hell is this? Right. And well, they're Pop Tarts. Well, that's not what I asked you for. Yeah, but these are better for you. Now you can see how that turns into a fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
What what isn't being addressed has to be talked through. Well, I want you to be healthy. I don't want you to eat Pop Tarts. Well, I don't want you to eat the bad
The
Pop
bad
Tarts, right?
part.
Well, then he's going to say, well, you're fatter than me. You're the one that's on, boom, it's on, right?
Right.
But what was the real issue? So if he could sit down and say, why would you buy me something I didn't
I
want?
didn't want, yeah.
Well, I want you to be healthy, whatever. Okay. But do you understand that even those Pop Tarts are not healthy? I'm bringing this up because there's like a big joke in
About the,
with
yes.
RFK and Marco Rubio about the Pop Tarts. Um,
And our grandson in the Pop
yeah, my
Tarts.
my daughter won't let me give my grandson Pop Tarts, even though if when he's alone with me, I'm going to give him a Pop Tart. But when you look at it, like what was the cause? If he could be empathetic to the fact that she was trying to make sure he was healthy, and then she could understand that he's not going to eat as many of them, but when he does have one, he wants the OG
Enjoy it.
Pop Tart,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they can talk about it, but he's going to feel like she's policing his weight and his health. And she's going to feel like she tried to do something nice for him and he's just being rigid and disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at all of that, like
Yeah.
that little fight can turn into a domestic violence because nobody's understanding where the other
Mm-hmm.
person's coming from. When you feel grace and mercy for the things you've done, you become a more open person to other perspectives, other opinions,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
you approach arguments different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you
Yep.
I'm going to give you two of the best pieces of information for somebody who's been through a domestic violence situation, Anonymous. Number 1, and this is the dumbest concept in the world or the best concept in the world, depending if you do it right. The concept of a timeout.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is kind of an older concept, but it works if you do it right. People say, well, just take a timeout. So just walk away, take a breath, come back, and re engage in the argument. Unless you practice taking a timeout,
Mm-hmm.
all you're going to do is go somewhere and ruminate about what you should have said, what you're going to say when you come
Get
back.
back. Yeah.
So you have to practice what things you can do that calm you, and you practice them. So people say, I'm going to go for a walk. But if you become a speed walker that's just rehearsing what you're going to say when you come back, walking is not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say, well, I'm going to take a bath. That calms me. Are you literally going to run a bath when you and your husband are screaming at each other? What are you going to do? Lock the door and he's beating on the door? Some things aren't practical.
Mm-hmm.
Driving, I couldn't take a time out driving. You want to make me mad? Put me behind the wheel of a car and other people, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
what things calm you? A walk through the park, a walk with the dog, a journal, like take your notebook to the park and write down how you're feeling instead of what you're thinking, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is something you have to practice.
Mm-hmm.
What you have to do, in my opinion, is is that you have to fight the issues, not each other. Okay. And that's a skill as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're fighting over money and she comes at you and says, "What the hell is wrong with you? You just spent $200 that we didn't have budgeted." You see what she did? She just made it about you, not the issue. So then if your response is, "What do you mean, what the hell am I doing? Miss $400 a month on hair and nails?"
Mm-hmm.
Now it's about her. What's the issue? The finances.
Mm-hmm.
So if she comes at you that way and you say, "Listen, sounds to me like you're kind of worried about money right now. I apologize that if I spent money that I didn't ask for. But let's talk about money. If I start coming at you about your spending, what are you afraid of?" "Well, I'm afraid we're not going to have enough money at the end of the month. I get a $5,000 bonus at the end of this month, and what I bought was not
Mm-hmm.
for me personally. I bought it for the car or whatever."
Mm-hmm.
And what's the issue? Not the fight. But most people, as soon as you bring me to the table, I'll bring you to the table.
Right.
The issue is nowhere near the table. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're just fighting each other. Well, what happens when you fight somebody else? You fight to win, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I was saying earlier about the frustration of men being logical is that when men are bringing the issue to the table or what they think the issue is and you ignore it, and women are bringing the man to the table, well, stereotypically, what will happen is that when the man gets frustrated, then he's going to go in for the kill. And then women are better at the going in for the kill. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just saying stereotypically, so bear with me. And then if she says something that hurts his feelings or his fragile ego, whatever, that's when the violence comes. And
Mm-hmm.
it could switch, the roles could switch.
Oh
It
yeah.
could be a same sex couple,
Mm-hmm.
and usually one of them will take more of one role or the other. So I'm not just speaking
Oh
this like
yeah.
this is
It's
fact,
yep.
but that's what occurs. And so, like in a domestic violence situation, you can see it coming.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be able to say, "I'm going to take a break. I'm going to go calm down so this doesn't become personal or get even more heated than it is. It's already out of control. We're not focused on the issues, we're focused on each other. Give me 20 minutes and I'll come back."
Mm-hmm.
And then you really have to come back to the table. What is the issue? Most of the time, it's just a communication thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Tell me I'm
Yeah.
crazy, Melissa, but men speak the language of respect, women speak the language of love, stereotypically. You can narrow down most fights to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
So men want to
It's
be respected.
mm-hmm.
I used to joke like this. I used to say, you walk into a room full of guys and you walk up to your man and you say, "You know what? I love you." Give him a kiss. You'll walk out of the room and all his buddies will go like, "Oh, that's cute. Does she love you? That was cute." Are you guys gonna like go hug later? Is she gonna buy you some flowers? They'll pick on you.
Mm-hmm.
But if a woman were to walk into a room, just stare at you a little bit in front of your friends and go, "Man, I respect you," and walk out the door, every man in that room will stop what they're doing. Their jaws will be on the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
their next response will be, "You better keep that one."
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Men speak the language of respect, and then they try to approach their conversations with a woman like, "Well, I respect you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need you to respect me. I need you to love me and cherish me and protect me and understand me,"
Mm-hmm.
and those types of things. And so when you have an issue on the table and you're trying to fight through the personhoods of it, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we don't give advice, but there's just some avenues to go
Oh
down.
yeah.
Last thing we'll say is that I don't know if you're a Christian or not. It seems like the last
Mm-hmm.
handful of letters people aren't even addressing with their faith, and that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. But if you're not, don't let religious people tell you that Jesus is some scorekeeper that's got a tab
Right. Yeah.
on you, good and bad, and you're failing. And this one is 17 marks against you instead of one, and now you got to go do 40 good things to counteract it. That's not how it works, man.
Mm-hmm.
Grace is free. It means free.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, we get the word uh, the word like gratis is free in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
We say the word gracias or grazie in Italian because it's like, you're giving grace, you're giving
Mm-hmm.
them this free parting. like, like you're giving them love as they go.
As they go. Yeah.
That word means little free, unmerited, undeserved favor.
Yeah.
And so when you accept it, there's change for that. So I don't know who thinks you're unlovable, who you don't. We don't think you're unlovable.
Yeah.
We actually see the guts really to write in,
exactly.
to call in, and to make
tell
changes.
your story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so
good for him.
We wish you well.
Yeah.
If you need anything else from us, definitely reach out. And we're right here, just an email or a correspondence away. Let's put it that way. Okay, so let's not forget that this podcast is written, hosted, and produced by us, Anthony and Melissa Corelli. This program is copyright The Struggle LLC. Shout out to Todd Kazinka with Todd K Voiceovers. Don't forget, if you have a story of your own, you want to reach out to us, ask us some questions, you want to be a guest, you want to write us a letter, all of that could be done by reaching out at GracefortheUnlovable@gmail.com. If you want to find out more about our organization, all of our podcasts, about us, you can find us at thestruggleseries.com. That's our website. And last but not least, healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. So may God bless you and bring you peace. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend. We will see you next time.